Okay, picture this. You're mapping out humanity's next giant leap, right? A mission to Mars.
Hmm.
And the biggest, maybe the most critical decision, your ride.
Yeah.
How? How in the world do you even begin choosing the perfect rocket? It's not exactly like, scrolling through car options online.
No, it's exponentially more complex, isn't it? You're not just moving stuff or people. You're
Right.
launching years of planning, billions maybe in investment, and just huge global aspirations into the void.
Exactly. And we've actually got some fascinating material here that dives deep into that exact challenge. The really intricate process of picking the right rocket for something as demanding as heading to Mars.
Yeah, this source, it really lays bare the layers of thinking involved. It gets way beyond the obvious stuff into the really strategic challenges.
So our mission in this deep dive is basically to unpack the key factors and the requirements the source says are essential for making that crucial choice. What are the absolute non-negotiables, and maybe what are some surprising trade-offs?
We'll definitely see. It's not just about building the biggest firecracker, so to speak. It's a highly constrained puzzle.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. The source highlights right away that, yeah, picking a rocket isn't simple, not a straight line. It involves juggling multiple factors, and they often conflict, right?
That's exactly right. It lists these critical elements like launch windows, those very precise, limited times when Earth and Mars line up just right for a decent trajectory.
Makes sense.
Then there's cost, obviously. The sheer physical size you need, safety records, which are huge, the amount of thrust, that's the raw power you need just to beat Earth's gravity, and interestingly, the potential for reusability.
Okay, launch windows, thrust, those seem like hard physics constraints. But why do costs and reusability, why do they stand out as major sticking points, according to this source anyway?
Well, cost is, it's almost always the primary driver, isn't it, for these
Yeah.
huge space projects. Getting mass to orbit is just incredibly expensive, so anything that minimizes that recurring cost is vital. And reusability is fascinating because, like the source notes, it isn't always a strict requirement for the launch itself, but it's pretty fundamental if you're even thinking about a return trip
Right.
or, future missions. So it adds this complex layer of future planning onto a decision you have to make now.
And the source doesn't just leave us hanging with general factors, does it? It gives us specific requirements for, like, our hypothetical journey here, the MarsToo mission. You
Exactly.
can't just pick any rocket. It has to fit the actual job description.
Precisely. For this mission, the source lists these requirements. The rocket has to have a high likelihood of success. Pretty important.
Yeah, you'd think.
Enough capacity, room for your crew and supplies. It needs to be as low cost as possible
Right.
and reusable if possible.
That if possible, on reusability.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of telling, isn't it? It frames it as a nice to have, maybe, not a deal breaker.
It is. And this is really where the core task comes in. You have to weigh all those general factors we mentioned, launch windows, thrust, safety, cost, reusability, against these specific needs for this MarsToo mission.
Right.
It's all about finding the optimal compromise, the best fit that actually meets the requirements laid out.
And the source gives you the tool to do that weighing, which is helpful. It includes rocket specifications. You can think of it like a data table, kind of like Figure 2 in the source material. It provides the concrete numbers you need to compare.
Exactly right. These specs, they detail things like, is the rocket reusable or not? What's its track record number of successful launches? Payload capacity, basically, how much stuff can it lift?
Okay.
Passenger capacity, too. The cost per launch, which is a huge number usually. And, other relevant bits of info.
So the task really becomes using these sort of real-world specs from different available rockets, comparing them point by point against the MarsToo requirements, and then making a justified choice. You have to back it up with the data provided in the source.
Yeah, it shifts it from just talking about factors in theory to a proper data-driven decision. You're using success rates to judge likelihood of success.
Right.
You're checking passenger and payload capacity against enough room for your crew. You're looking hard at cost per launch for that as low cost as possible goal. It forces you to connect the dots between the numbers and what the mission actually needs.
So yeah, selecting a Mars rocket is, wow, it's far more than just needing a massive engine. It's this really intricate data-driven puzzle. You're balancing the tech specs, the specific mission needs, and some very real-world constraints like the budget.
It really is about finding that strategic fit based on hard criteria. You need to show a high chance of success, make sure it can carry everything and everyone, keep the cost down as much as you reasonably can, and then figure out if reusability fits into those priorities.
Thinking about that balance then, if reusability is listed as something desired if possible, but it isn't strictly required for the launch itself, while cost and success rate are required, what does that specific trade-off, as the source presents it, kind of imply about the fundamental priorities when you're designing these early, super ambitious deep space missions? It really makes you think about what truly comes first, doesn't it?